Hello friends and welcome back to my channel. My name is Cinderellimouse and I'm here today with early access to the Sims 4 For Rent expansion pack courtesy of the EA Creator Network. Now I spent the last few days playing with this pack and I have some thoughts and feelings. I've kind of looked at as much as I possibly could. So this video is going to kind of be like an overview, general thoughts, kind of what are you getting if you buy this expansion pack video. I have to say I really do like it. I think there's a lot of positives. I'm definitely excited to get it into my own personal game because this is kind of like a separate whole dealio that they give us. So I am excited to kind of install it in my own personal save file and kind of like start building in different areas. So the expansion pack comes with a new world. It's called TOMERANG and it's based on Southeast Asia, kind of inspired by places like Thailand and Cambodia. And you can definitely see that in kind of like the architecture, especially like the temple and the tiger sanctuary. That's right, you heard it, tiger sanctuary. So I think there's some really interesting and unique build styles in this area. Is split into two regions. One of them is Moransong, and this is kind of like the more built up area. It's kind of a bit more town, a bit more vibrant, a bit more nightlife orientated, and it has these really unique buildings that I think are very inspirational. I kind of looked at them myself when I started kind of like building for this pack. So there's a good variety there. It's all quite unique, and I definitely recommend kind of exploring around and taking a bit of a peek at what's on offer there. There's a few things to interact with in the world. So there's like a little park area where there's like hopscotch and marbles and like a climbing frame. Hopscotch and marbles are two new kind of child activities that come with this pack, and you can actually go around and kind of like collect marbles, and you can buy them from the night market and things like that. The night market is a feature of this world. So we've seen markets in other packs like City Living. The thing with this is that it's quite quiet during the day and it kind of comes alive at night, and it's kind of like a bit of a community hub. So the world itself I found to be quite quiet during the day. There's not many people roaming around, but during kind of like the market hours, you will see kind of like a hub of activity there. There's also rabbit holes you can interact with. For example, there's a fish market which you can click on and go and buy produce from. And there's also a really beautiful temple building. Now you can go in there and interact with it, and it gives you a really nice kind of positive buff. But apart from that, it's quite simple. The second neighbourhood is CoSappa. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. And this area is a little bit more villagey, a little bit more tropical. There's some like dense kind of overgrowth, undergrowth in this area. There's also a really gorgeous kind of beach and swimmable ocean area in this part of the world. Now if you go across the water, there's a cave system which you can explore as a rabbit hole, and there's some really unique and interesting kind of buffs that you can get from doing this. You can also find things like tassels, which are a new collectible for the world, and you can get a lot of lore about kind of the region and the history and what's going on with Tomerang if you kind of explore the cave system. What I would say about the cave and the beach and the kind of water is it takes a really long time to cross that bit of water. So if you do happen to have Solani, what's it called, Island Living, and you might want to get a boat to make that a little bit quicker, because I was a bit worried about my sim getting exhausted crossing that water, and they actually did need a pee as well at one point, and there's no kind of like woohoo bushes or anything like that to kind of relieve yourself in that area. So what you're gonna have to do if you are caught short and you do need a pee while you're visiting the cave is swim out into the ocean and pee in the ocean. It's fine guys, nobody will know. Another place that you might want to kind of explore in this area is the tiger sanctuary. Now the tiger sanctuary, you're not actually going to see any actual tigers. It's all rabbit hole, but it's quite nice. It's focused not so much as like a zoo. It's kind of more focused on kind of it's a sanctuary, so it's like conservation aspect and kind of looking after the tigers, so it has that nice spin on it, and if you're lucky and you have your sim kind of explore the rabbit hole, you might kind of come across some through storytelling. Another really nice thing about the tiger sanctuary is you can click on it and actually adopt a tiger. If you adopt a tiger, you actually get parcels through the post, and you get these really gorgeous kind of like tiger cuddlies, these tiger toys, which are very cute. So I definitely recommend doing that. There's also statues you can interact with in this part of the world, which again tell you more about the lore and kind of like the goddess of this lore of the world. But I'll let you explore that in your own time, or go and check out some other videos which are more in depth about the kind of world and the lore and that kind of good stuff. But I do really like that they've added a lot of lore. You've also got like the Tomerang truth interaction, which again, if you run it on certain locals that are like pre-made, you're going to get a lot of backstory to the pre-made families as well. So there is a lot of depth with the lore, and I really do appreciate that. In CoSappa as well, there is a bar called the Screaming Gecko. It does act like a standard bar in the game, with the exception of it having culturally appropriate bar food to the region. So the drinks kind of are the same. There are some new kind of drinks on the bar menu for this pack, but the food is not like the pretzels and chips you'd normally find. It's actually regional food, which I think is a really nice touch actually. My one complaint about Tomerang is that it does feel like a really small world. I'd say it's kind of similar to the size of the world that you get in My Wedding Stories, Tartosa, and considering this is an expansion pack, I would have liked a little bit more room to build, especially because this expansion pack really focuses on the aspect of like multi-unit living. So I do wish that it was a bigger world. I would have liked to have seen something that was a bit more of a city area as well. I do feel like it's a bit shortchanged for an expansion pack to have such a small world, but it is very beautiful, it is very lush, and I do think being able to build apartments gives you a lot more flexibility with like how many Sims you can fit in each sub-neighborhood. Yeah, for example, like I could see myself wanting to build like a restaurant here and things like that. So I do think if you've got a limited amount of lots, I count it as 9 lots, I do think you kind of stuck with flexibility on that. So on to Creator Sim. One of the things that I love about Creator Sim is that you get 4 aspirations and 5 new traits. Now to me this is always a really good sign, because new traits mean new gameplay, and like if we've got 4 aspirations as well, they normally guide you through the elements of gameplay. So to me it's a really good sign if you get a lot of traits in CAS. The first aspiration is 5-star property owner, which is all about being a landlord and kind of like managing your tenants, managing your properties, attending emergencies, and kind of dealing with any problems. Discerning dweller is all about being a good tenant and being a good neighbour, and kind of discovering all the aspects of renting a property. Fount of Tomerani knowledge is about discovering the world and kind of exploring, meeting the locals, learning about the world, and kind of exploring some of the rabbit holes like the cave system and the tiger sanctuary. Seeker of Secrets. Now this was actually the most fun for me to play. It is a mischief aspiration, but it's really fun. It means that you get to be nosy, you get to go and discover people's secrets. It does encourage you to do some of the more deviant actions in the game, but it is a lot of fun to play through, so I recommend that one. The 5 traits are cringe, generous, nosy, child of the village, and wise. Now wise is quite unique because it's elder specific. Now, I'm under the impression that it is discoverable. This hasn't actually happened to me, so I do need to fact check it. But I believe that even if you don't assign wise in CAS, your sim can discover it through gameplay. I like that, and I kind of wish that even though if it's elder specific in CAS, that my sims could still develop it through gameplay at other ages. That would be my preference. But it is quite an interesting trait, and I like the idea of kind of giving different ages more definition. Now, there's a really good range of clothing. You get hairstyles, accessories, shoes, and you actually get clothing for all the different ages. So there's some clothing in there that is for, you know, stylish young adults, but you also get kind of clothing that's appropriate for elders, clothing that's a bit more traditional, and you get things for children, infants, and toddlers as well. So I love that there's something for all ages. The inspiration for the clothing is actually Southeast Asian, but I think they've handled this really well because you get a range of traditional clothing that's going to be really appropriate for things like formal occasions like weddings and things like this. However, they have been careful to avoid maybe stereotyping a community and assuming that everybody wears cultural clothing all the time. the approach that they seem to have taken with this is to have things like, for example, a pair of shorts that, you know, you've got plain swatches, anyone can wear it, it's a familiar shape, but you also get some really nice patterns on it that are culturally inspired. Another example is there's a long skirt and you get patterned versions and also a plain version. So you can make things look a little bit more culturally inspired, but you can also tone it down and make it look a lot more like modern streetwear. So I think they've really handled that very, very well. I do actually prefer the kind of everyday casual clothing. I sort of have a bit of a fear that the more ostentatious clothing, the more patterned brights and the more traditional outfits are going to kind of show up on townies in kind of weird and random combinations. And I do feel like I personally want more everyday casual clothing in the game, because I do think wherever you go in the world, there's certain things that everybody will wear. So, you know, I could go to Asia or to Africa or to South America or to Europe or North America, and people are going to be wearing t-shirts, they're going to be wearing shorts, they're going to be wearing jeans, they're going to be wearing trainers, they're going to be wearing shirts, and so these common shapes, I think you get them kind of globally, and I think we live in a modern world where you know, we shouldn't assume that we're going to go to a place and people are going to be wearing traditional clothing. So I again would love to see more kind of casual everyday clothing in the game and less of the more ostentatious items, personally speaking. There's also some really nice details on some of the items, so I really appreciate the way the fabric folds, like when it gets tucked in or when a sleeve gets rolled up. There's also some items with really, really nicely made toggles and kind of fastener detail and pockets, and also there's some attention to detail with texture. Now I've noticed the Sims team seem to have been improving the texture on items, so you get linens and this kind of knitted fabric on some of the items, and I just think it's really nice. It stops the items from looking kind of like flat. So overall, I appreciate the traditional clothing because I think it's appropriate to certain situations, but I really, really like that they've taken this kind of everyday familiar shape approach and then just kind of added a little bit of pattern detail on there with kind of texture and colour. So Build By comes with some really nice items. Some of it is inspired by kind of like Southeast Asia. Like we have these really gorgeous roof trims, which I was excited about, and I hope we see more of those. I'd love to see like Victorian gingerbread roof trims as well. And some really nice doors and windows and things like this, which are very kind of like heavily Southeast Asian inspired. I think they've worked really well with things like the Moroccan kit almost though as well. I could definitely see myself pairing those things together. A highlight of Build By for me is the new tiles. There's a range of like 3 different types of new tiles, which I think are absolutely gorgeous. They are all for floors though. I'm like, where's my wall tiles? But maybe that's not really a thing. I don't know. Something else that you get in Build By is some really nice furniture that I think has quite a modern approach, which makes it really flexible and usable in a lot of different circumstances. So there's a gorgeous bed, a really nice chair, some nice artwork, and I can see myself using these a lot. You also get some new kitchen counters, which again, always really happy to see a new kitchen counter set. And then you get things as well, like there's a kettle, a rice cooker, the hopscotch, the marbles, what else? There's a new bar. So there's a decent amount of kind of like gameplay objects, and I think that the style of the Build By is a little bit more flexible than perhaps the CAS is, and I really like it. Yeah, it's good. Some of the items you get in Build By as well are kind of themed around apartments and maintenance. So you get like a water heater, radiators, an electrical box, and I've heard that these are actually compatible if you have things like seasons. So I can't try and test that right now, but I've heard that if you have seasons, then, you know, the radiator is going to warm up the room, the water heater is going to kind of like heat up your water, all that kind of stuff. But these things can break down and you do have to kind of like maintain them to improve your unit property rating. So this leads me on to the highlight of the pack, which is the fact that you can now own and rent apartments. So this is like the big selling point. This is the headline of the pack. You can be a property owner or you can be a tenant. I'm going to talk about property owner first. So if you want to get started straight away and you've got no build skills, that is okay, because you can just jump into the game, use the business kind of UI and just buy up any property you can afford. Now it doesn't even have to be a residential rental. You can just buy a residential property and kind of like put it on the market to get a tenant. What you do need to do though, and you need to be careful as well, if you're just buying kind of like a little lot kind of a little pre-made lot from another world, you do actually have to go in and assign the units. Otherwise the rent is going to be super cheap, because it takes into account like how many bedrooms it has. And if you haven't assigned the units and they're all down as shared spaces, then that's going to be kind of problematic. So make sure you do that. But it's dead simple. You just buy any lot, set it as unit 1, and then you can rent that out, and it does generate kind of a bit of a passive income. You can also build your own multi-unit residential property, which you can have up to 6 units kind of as standard. And there is a cheat, which I guess I'll put on screen somewhere, that if you want up to 100 units, now it is 100 units per save. So say you have one lot and it's like 90 units and you want to go and build other apartments in other worlds, you're going to be limited. You're only going to be actually able to have 10 more units. So it is a big number, but it's per save file. So they're not actually recommending you have like one lot with 100 units. But if you want to, I have seen that other game changers are exploring that idea. So sorry, creators are exploring that idea. So go and check out their videos. If they put videos up on that, it's going to be quite entertaining to see. But like I say, I really like that. I really like that they're kind of like, hey, this is your limit. Do what you want with it. If you want 10 units, you can do 10 units, whatever. You know, break your games at your own risk. Thank you, Sims. I appreciate you putting the power in my hands. But I do find like 6 units is generally more than enough in most cases. I've been able to kind of like do what I want to do with 6 units. A great thing as well is if you want to be the property owner, you can kind of like buy up properties and kind of rent them out and live on your own lot. Or you can even live on the lot that you're renting and just take one unit as your own. You just assign it as your home unit. So that's really nice as well, that they've given you that kind of flexibility. Another thing you can do if you don't want to be the property owner is that you can go in and you can rent any of these units as well. So as the player, as the builder, I do find that the best thing to do is build. If you want to build a multi-unit residential property, go in and build it first without any Sims owning it, and kind of set it all up in like build mode, and then move your Sims in. You can rent them furnished or unfurnished. So if you're like me and you remember the Sims 2 apartment life, how you could just go and knock on the door and kind of go into their apartment, it's not like that. It has got loading screens between apartments. Some of you are going to be fine with it. Some of you are going to be raging. I understand. I'm team, oh, I would have liked no loading screens, but I think, you know, I don't think the Sims team would have made this decision easily. I think they would have looked into it. I think they would have looked into the mechanics of it and figured out the best way of doing this in a kind of like playable, easy to use experience. Especially one where if you built apartments in The Sims 2 and The Sims 3, it was quite tricky. You kind of had to use kind of, it wasn't really very player facing. You had to use tips and tricks and kind of like clever simmer secret knowledge to kind of do it. So this is actually the first expansion pack. It's the first game where they've given us those kind of apartment making, player facing tools in a really easy to use, straightforward fashion. So I guess to do that they needed loading screens. So one reason why I think that they've gone with the loading screen approach is if you've ever tried to build multi-unit kind of properties yourself, like apartments yourself, the Sims share kind of money, they share fridges, they share bookshelves, and so like everything is kind of pooled like that. So I think loading screens kind of prevent, one reason is I think it kind of prevents people stealing from your fridge and stealing from your bookshelf and stealing from your household funds. Another way that I think it's, another reason for it is that I think it stops like the load and the lag, because if it's trying to generate all these Sims and all these objects all the time, it can put a lot of strain on kind of like people's systems if they've got like a mid-range PC. So I'm out of breath, I just have to go and answer the door. Yeah. Speaking about answering the door, one thing that I think could be improved on is I find the shared spaces to be quite quiet. Sims do come out and use things like gym equipment or bars or gardening objects and pools, barbecues as well, but on the whole it's quieter than I was expecting. I was expecting to have a bit more community drama and things going on in those areas, so I thought maybe like your Sims would throw a random party and you'd be like, keep the noise down, or people would be like banging on your door, or you'd be able to like there's things that I wish they'd done where without a loading screen, like there's an interaction where you can eavesdrop on your neighbour's door, but you have to travel to be able to do it. And I think it would have been nice if you could have just gone up to your neighbour's door and eavesdropped without actually loading the interior of the lot. So I wish it as well, things like being able to knock on the door and complain, but just have the sim come out of the door, or being able to kind of like knock on and ask people to hang out without the loading screen would have been better. I kind of miss that kind of like social aspect of kind of multi-unit living, and I think that could have been better, but it's not bad. It's not bad by any means. I would have just liked more. One thing that's really, really fun is the events system. So again, this is one of the big gameplay systems that they've invested a lot of kind of effort in with this expansion pack. Now, if you're a property owner, you're going to have to deal with problems. So it might be a fire, it might be an electrical fault, it might be an explosion, it might be an infestation of bugs, it might be ghosts. There's so many different events that can pop up. I think there's like about 12, 15 events that can happen. And I haven't experienced every single one of them myself yet, but I've experienced quite a few, and there is a good amount of variety. Now, for example, if it's a maintenance problem or an electrical fault or something like that, a plumbing problem, you're just going to have to go as the property owner and deal with that problem. Now, you can fix it yourself if you're particularly handy. I do recommend having handy sims as property owners, because you do end up fixing things, even if you're not, even if you're like Nancy Langram and you're a bit hands off, sometimes you end up just fixing stuff because it's the easiest way to do it. But yeah, you can also kind of like employ handymen and things like that if you want to like solve it that way, or you can just not solve it and be like, you're on your own. So if you're not very good at kind of like solving the problems, if your unit rating drops too low, you can also face a tenant revolt, which is like a big protest, and you have to go and kind of like promise them better conditions. You can do things as well as the property owner, like kick people out. You can kick people out for not paying rent. You can kick people out kind of unfairly and face the consequences of that as well if you want to. So you can be a good property owner or a bad property owner. If you are living in the residential property and you have a maintenance event, you can also fix it, or you can call your property owner over to kind of come and fix it as well. This is a little bit, it's a bit touch and go. It doesn't always work as I would like it to. For example, my oven exploded and started a big kitchen fire, and I had to kind of like replace all the damaged furniture, but I thought, well, shouldn't that be the property owner's responsibility? So I think there's some discrepancies perhaps about maybe it's regional, maybe it's like a UK thing versus an American thing with like legislation and who's responsible for things. But I kind of felt like, isn't this the landlord's responsibility to fix this? Why am I having to fix this? So I think that's just kind of like getting used to the gameplay mechanics and getting used to kind of like what you're responsible for and what you're not responsible for. And again, you can be a good tenant or a bad tenant and be rewarded or punished for that. One thing I really, really like is that there's a new fear. It's fear of eviction. So if you upset your landlord, if you break the unit rules, you might get really worried about getting evicted. So your property owner will come around and kind of like bang on the door, and your sim will be like, no, I don't want to answer, and it'll get all these buffs. So I think that's a really, really nice touch. And again, you can kind of work through that fear just by getting to know your landlord better and kind of being a bit pally with them, and kind of that'll take the edge off the fear a little bit for you. What else as well? There's so much to talk about. Another thing with events, which I really, really appreciate. So there's two things actually that I want to point out. One is that in options, you can turn off the events. So if you're trying to do something, say you're trying to plan your wedding and you're going through the motions of that, and it's like, that's what you want to concentrate on, or you're concentrating on your career or your kids, and you don't want to have to be constantly dealing with these maintenance issues. Maybe you're just getting a bit bored of that. You want to use the rental system as a more passive income. You can turn off the event system and not get bothered by that anymore. Another thing, if you love the event system and you want that all the time, not just on residential properties, you can actually just on any kind of like any residential kind of normal home lot, you can use a lot challenge. So I'll kind of put it up on screen. So you can use the lot challenge to add these kind of events to normal residential properties and kind of like let the mayhem happen. So obviously if you own your own property and something happens, you're going to have to deal with it yourself. But I love that players who really enjoy that kind of chaos can have the chaos in their normal gameplay. You don't have to have a rental property to do it. I do kind of wish we had more personal situations. So I wish we had things like, oh no, tenant from property number 1 and tenant from property number 5 are having an affair, and then the wife found out. I wish there was more like social events that could happen. Now, to talk about my absolute favorite feature, it's so chaotic. I want to talk about mold. So mold is kind of like an opt-in system. It's a little bit like the dust system. You can, you know, how you could toggle it on and off, except for with mold, it's a lot trait. So if you add the mold lot challenge and you don't keep your apartment clean and tidy, you're gonna get mold. And it's quite dramatic. It's really fun actually. People who like chaos are gonna love the mold system. So the way to kind of trigger it is to have dirty plumbing, it's to have puddles on the floor, and it's to have like overflowing trash. So like basically messy, especially in terms of plumbing. And you're gonna find the mold piles start spawning quite quickly if the conditions get bad enough. So there's 2 types of mold. There's allergic mold, allergenic mold, and toxic mold. Now the allergenic mold, the allergic mold is the tamer version. It's just going to make your sim a bit dizzy, it's going to make them dazed, and it's going to give them buffs to make them feel a little bit off. And the other mold is the toxic mold. Now this is the one you really need to watch out for, because this gives you sporiosis, and that is deadly. So the brilliant thing about this is that it has an exposure system. So the more that you're around the different, and you can get both at the same time, you can have moldinitis and sporiosis. It's 2 different diseases based on the 2 different mold piles. Now, like I say, moldinitis is just unpleasant, sporiosis is deadly, and with the exposure system, the more time you spend around it, the more serious those diseases are going to get, and the more longer the buff is going to last for. Now, if you get deadly sporiosis, you have to act quite quickly, because the Grim Reaper is going to be stalking you at that point. And you're going to want to do everything you can to kind of reduce these buffs. Now, like I say, it is exposure related. So if you trap a sim in a room with those kind of fungus mushrooms, they're going to kind of get severe moldinitis or severe sporiosis quite quickly, and it's going to be a bit of a dire situation. But if they leave the room, if they walk around in this fresh air, and if they survive, you're going to start to see the symptoms reduce. So they're going to start to get a bit more mild. So I love that it's exposure that kind of like determines the severity of it. I think that's a really cool system. Now, like I say, if you get deadly sporiosis, like severe sporiosis, you're going to really be able to tell, because the sims are going to get kind of like black skin, and they're going to kind of look like zombies. They're going to look really sick. And then one thing that they do if they get the very, very severe form of this illness is they actually kind of like cough, barf up more mold piles. So I love this because it actually spreads. Now, I know we've recently had a bit of a serious global situation with this, but it's such fun gameplay, and it's just a game. Why do you have to be mad? And again, it's opt-in, so if you don't want it, you don't have to have it, right? You don't have to get triggered by this, guys. It's okay. But for those of you who like the chaos and who find comedy versions of real life situations very cathartic, you're gonna absolutely love this system, because like I say, it spreads. So the sims are gonna kind of like cough up the spores if they get this disease badly enough, and it's gonna spread around the community areas. Now, if your sim is gonna clean up the spores, they do put on like kind of like masks and things like that, but again, they can get exposed to it quite easily. So if your sim gets coughs up a spore pile in a community area, or even if it spawns, if you have the mold lot tray on your unit and your unit is loaded, the community areas can also get mold if they get like dirty enough. So again, if you've got like a shared shower space and it's not clean, you can get mold in those shared areas. So if mold is in a shared area, your neighbours are going to start getting moldinitis. I had my maid come in cleaning up the mold, and they got it, and then they went to go to the landgrab's house and they started spreading the mold there. So it doesn't only just spread in your unit, it can spread throughout the world, because infected sims kind of cough up the spores, and it's great. It's such a good gameplay system, guys. I love it so much, and it can get out of hand really fast. So if you don't pay attention, there could be spore piles that you're not aware of, and you have to like go looking for them, because you're going to start noticing that people are kind of getting sick. it's just so good. And then it's like me being excited about this awful feature. So then, like I say, if you get the scoliosis and you die from it, it's such a horrific death. It's so well done, and I love that the Sims team went hardcore on this, because the first time it happened I was like I was like traumatized. I think it's based on like The Walking Dead or something like that. I don't know, I haven't watched it. But the brilliant thing is you're then going to get ghosts, and the ghosts spread the mole piles. So even if you clean up the mole piles, the ghost, if it's still on the lot, it's going to spread it. So oh my god, it escalates so quickly, guys. Don't fear though, if you do get like moldinitis or scoliosis, it's not the end of the world, as it has a system of kind of like mild to severe. So what you need to do very, very quickly is clean up all the mole piles on your lot, and then, or in the kind of immediate area, and then you can get in the shower and you can scrub the spores off. So scrub the spores off as quickly as you can before it starts to spread. But like I say, if it does escalate, it escalates quickly, and it gets out of hand so fast, and it's chaotic, and I love it. Yeah, if you get the ghost, and the ghost is like coughing up the stuff, one thing that I don't know if many people are going to realize, if you add that ghost to your household, if you have a playable ghost who died from scoliosis, there's special interactions that they have. If you click on food, you can spoil food. If you click on plants, you can actually encourage the plants to grow better. It's kind of like you can fertilize the plants, and you can click on the ground and spawn mushrooms. So there's extra gameplay for the ghosts, which I think is amazing. It's such a good feature. Go and play with the mole, guys. It's the best kind of, it's like what we need. It's like Sims chaos in the best way, and it doesn't feel, to me, it doesn't feel like inappropriate in any sort of way. It actually feels like comedy relief of a more serious topic, and I think art should imitate life, and I think they've handled it really well. So yeah, I can't wait to see kind of the videos that people do kind of creating the zombie apocalypse. It's more of a zombie apocalypse, I think, than anything else. Another really fun feature to play with, and one of the ones that I found most interesting, is the secrets dynamic. Now, you can discover secrets in a lot of different ways, through eavesdropping on conversations, spying on Sims, even breaking into their homes and kind of rifling through their stuff. Now, the least aggressive way to discover secrets is just by speaking to the Sim and getting to know them. Now, the TOMERANG truth interaction sometimes gives you lore about the world, but kind of gossiping with Sims also sometimes reveals a secret. Now, the secrets themselves are really interesting and fun to read. There's quite a big variety of these, and I think the Sims team probably had a lot of fun writing them. Some of them are quite generic and random. You can get some really funny combinations. So, you know, having Nancy Landgrab have a particular secret, it can be quite funny, it can be quite surprising, it can kind of reinforce the character. And also NPCs like the Grim Reaper also has unique secrets. So definitely go out and explore and see what you can discover. Now, once you know a Sim secret, you have different options about what you do with that. You can confront them about the secret. Once you do this, you have the option to either blackmail them for money or to promise to keep their secret. So it depends on how you want to play it. You can use this feature in quite a friendly way, or you can use it in a more diabolical way. I do think it's going to be really interesting to play with this feature with things like the criminal career or the journalist career. I think it's going to be a very complementary feature for that. And also the detective career from Get to Work. I think it's going to be really interesting to combine those gameplay features. Like I say, I found secrets a really fun feature to explore, and it obviously complements the Seeker of Secrets aspiration and the nosy trait as well. But yeah, that's what I've got to say about this pack. So kind of my thoughts and feelings. Like I say, don't love cast at the moment, again, and I may feel differently if I have enough time with it and I get the opportunity to style it with some different pieces. At this point in time, I just feel like it's going to be like crazy towny outfit apocalypse everywhere. The highlights for me are kind of obviously being able to build apartments is a huge draw. I think I'm really excited to build in this spice district of San Myshuno, because you can build in any world, it doesn't have to be in TOMERANG. And I think this is going to be really beneficial if you've got like a favorite area. Say you love Windenburg, right, but all your lots are taken, or say for me, I love the spice district in San Myshuno and every single like apartment is taken. So what I'm going to be able to do now is build apartments and then have more places that my Sims can live, so more Sims can live in that area, which I think is really a gorgeous, vibrant area that I love using. So again, and there's so much flexibility. I think it's really nice as well. I'm British and I live in a terraced house, so if you've ever watched Coronation Street or you know that reference, that's very similar to the house that I live in. It's kind of like a row of houses. And I've never been able to build my house before in like The Sims 4 because like it's an attached property. Not many places in England like have detached houses. If you have a detached house, you've got probably at least $1 million in your bank account, and not many of us have that. So yeah, with terrace properties being really, really common here, it's really nice to be able to do that in the game. And so another thing is like the flexibility of the different types of apartments you can build. You know, I could build university dorm rooms, like university housing. I could build, you know, some modern flats in I don't know, in San Myshuno. I don't know. It's like you can build so much variety, and I think that's really, really, really nice to have a new way of building. And of course, like being able to add more Sims into these spaces is great as well. And another thing I really, really love is there's more. You don't have to buy, and this is something that I don't know if people are missing very much. I've not seen people talking about this, but it's very unrealistic in this economy, in this society, to own a property. Most people rent. So to have a new rental system where you don't just, I don't know, come out of university and buy a house straight away, but you've got to work up to it, is much more rags to riches. It's more realistic, and I think that's really cool as well. Yeah, and what else? Like the molds are brilliant. Build by is really nice. TOMERANG's beautiful if it is a little bit small. But yeah, all in all, I think this is a really solid pack. They've done a lot to kind of make it stable as well, to make being able to build apartments, to be a property owner, to be able to rent the apartments. Most of the work, it feels like it's gone in that direction because they wanted it to be a flexible system, I assume. They've created a flexible system that's going to be, there's a small learning curve, but I think with a little bit of trial and error, you're going to get used to this system very, very quickly, and you're going to be able to build what you want. And I think having such a flexible system was the main goal of this pack, and I understand that. So as I say, gameplay might be a little bit lighter in other areas, but TOMERANG's nice to explore. You've got the cave system, a huge amount of lore there, so it's worth checking out. Kind of, I don't know. It's been a long video, I'm tired. Yeah, let me know what you think, guys. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Do you want any more information? Let me know in the comments. I'll do my best to answer questions as best as I can. But that's more or less it for this video. I hope you've enjoyed. Go and check out my other videos where I'm going to look at stuff with a bit more gameplay, a bit more in depth, and I'm going to check out mold, definitely. And yeah, let me know what you're going to do with this pack. I'm going to go. Take care, guys. I will see you again soon. Bye, friends.